How's everybody doing this Thursday, August 15th, the year of our Lord 2024? Time for another video, True Life Experience. I try to think that I can share something with you that I went through or that I experienced, that at some point in your life you're going to go through the same thing or you're going to experience it. And you're going to say, yeah, that's what Dad was talking about, or that's what I remember him saying. But before I get into my personal experience, because what started it was this a story from this book, Conversation of the Saints. It's from the shrine in Orlando from around the year 2000. And according to this, it was $12.95. That's like the actual listed price. It's like, who actually sells things for the listed price, right? $12.95. Then there's the sticker. That's the sticker from the shrine. That's how I know that that's from the shrine. They got one heck of a bookstore there and gift shop. If you ever go there for Mass someday or adoration, I always felt that it was almost like a destination spot where after services you could sit and rest and pray and refresh yourself and then scoot on over to the gift shop and bookstore and see those little chains, the crucifixes, the finger rosaries, and big old bookstore in there. That's where this came from. And this is a story that I read. It was about the time I started sitting with Edmund. And up until about the time he passed away. So let me give you this story. It's called Faith to Raise the Dead. It's about John Bosco. John Bosco was a saint from the 1800s. He ran a boys' boarding school where he would take in like waifs and like troubled kids. In 1849, Charles, a young man who had spent 15 years with Don Bosco, died. In his last moments, he had asked to see the priest, but he was away on a trip. When Don Bosco could finally go to see his family in Turin, they said to him, "You are too late. Charles has already been dead for 6 hours." "Go away with you," replied Don Bosco. "He is only sleeping." The man of God approached the body where his mother and aunt were standing vigil. He blessed it and gathered his thoughts for a long time. Then he said with a commanding tone, "Charles, Charles, get up." The adolescent's body shuddered. With an abrupt gesture, the priest tore away the shroud which covered his face. Then, getting himself up, the child opened his eyes and began to speak. "Aren't I a mess? Oh, you are here, Don Bosco! If you only knew how I have been calling you. It is God who has sent you. You did well to awaken me." "Speak, my little Charles. Say what you want to say. I am here only for you," comforted the saint. Answered Charles, "At this time, I truly believe that I should be in the place of eternal sorrow. At one of my last confessions, I hid certain things from the priest. A nasty friend encouraged me to do it. A moment ago, I felt I was being chased by a troop of demons who wanted to capture me. But a beautiful lady interceded by saying, 'Leave him alone, he hasn't been judged yet.' A little later, I heard your voice and woke up. Now I beg you, hear my confession." Petrified in terror, the mother and aunt quickly left the room. When they re-entered with the rest of the family, confession had been heard. The young man said to the priest, "Don Bosco, you have saved me from hell. Now that you are here by the grace of God, you are assured of your salvation. Do you wish to stay here with us or leave? Asked Don Bosco. I want to go to heaven, exclaimed Charles. Well then, goodbye, Charles. Go off to paradise. As if he had not anticipated this chance, the child lowered his head onto the pillow, closed his eyes, and resumed his immobility. This time, he went to his eternal rest with the Lord. So, mid-1800s. And what this really made me think about, and since reading this, 24 years ago, of seeing Edmund, when people pass on, quite often I'd seen them in car crashes and in suicides, and what they call agonized breathing, or agonal breathing, where it seems like they're struggling to breathe and they appear unconscious. I've had 3 dogs put down, all 3 of my dogs, and none of them did any agonal breathing when they were knocked unconscious, and then their heart stopped, and that was it. They would go limp. But cats evidently are different. Kitsy, and I guess most, if not all cats, have what's the same agonal breathing that people do. That even though they're unconscious, they'll go into this gasping for air. And they'll do it maybe 3 or 4 or 5 times, and then they'll stop. The veterinarian assured me that they weren't feeling anything. It's just the part of the brain that controls your breathing and your heartbeat is buried deep inside. It's a gland, and it's very simple gland. All it does is control your heart rate and your breathing. That's why a lot of times at car crashes, people will be clinically deceased, but they'll be gasping for air, and their heart will continue to beat. Well, this story made me think of what was going on with Edmund when he was agonal breathing. And one time when I was sitting with him, the nurse came in and got me and told me that there was a lady across the hall who had no one to visit her, and that she was in a bad way. So when I left Edmund that day, I went across the hall into this lady's room, and I was surprised. It was a lady in her mid-30s. It was a younger lady. Looked like she had blonde hair, pretty looking, and she had no family, friends, or anybody. And she was in the last few hours of her life. Exactly what it was, I'm not sure. Cancer or AIDS or something, HIV. And she would breathe, gasp for air, and then she'd stop like she was dead. Then after a few seconds, she would all of a sudden start gasping again. And I held her hand and I spoke to her, and I noticed occasionally her eyebrows would move. And I thought about that story that I just read. Agonal breathing are almost like in a dream state and are being tormented by demons. That's why it's very, very important that somebody be there. As you go through life, there will come a time, maybe with your mother or for me, or for another close relative or a friend or an acquaintance. You'll be visiting them, like we did Edmund and the young lady Hillary, and you may visit them in their final hours. Well, Uncle Joey especially, back in December of 21, that those last 5-6 hours, he was groaning some, so I knew he was hurting, and I had him increase his medicine. But his agonal breathing, his groaning stopped, but his agonal breathing continued. And I kept thinking, I wonder if he's being chased by demons. And he's almost like in a nightmare, and he can't get up. And thinking of that, I prayed for him. I sat there with him, and I was there when he took his final breath. So it matters that, if at all possible, that you or somebody from the family can be there. And just remember that it's because they're unconscious. Doctors don't really know what you're hearing and what's going through your mind. I mean, even people that are showing no brain activity, there may be spurts of electromagnetic energy going on in there. But I always think of that story. I think perhaps he's being chased by demons. When I saw Uncle Joey laying there, and with Edmund and Hillary, I thought the same thing. That was after reading that story. And it's important because at some point you're going to encounter this. And if you can, make sure that you pray, that let them know that you're with them and that they're safe. If you can't think of any prayers, at least say the Our Father. And that will be enough to chase away the devil and the demons. And be there for them in their final moments, but just don't assume that they're just gone already and they're just gasping for air because of their brain. But more than likely they can hear everything, and they're in almost like a dream state, perhaps being tormented by the devil, being chased by the devil, and their angels trying to grab their hand, as they're being chased. So keep it in mind. It may be me or your mother or some other relative that you end up sitting by during those times. And it's during those times, maintain your composure and make sure that you pray. If you can, I've got a bunch of books, and I'll say this again, that there's a great many books in my bookcase that have thousands of prayers in them. Prayers for the sick, for the dying, for the lonely, for just about every single circumstance you can think of, there's a prayer for that. But in the bookcase is this book. Okay? In the bookcase is this book and about 200 others. The answer to all of life's questions, all of the mysteries that science tries to prove. The answers to all the questions you could ever think of is in that bookcase. So it's important that if anything's preserved and you want to expand your heart and your mind and your soul, find a place or a way to preserve those books. And most of them will have tags in them. The ones with the most tags, some of them are marked up with highlighter. Some of them, like this one, before I had a highlighter, so a lot of the pages are folded over on this one. I marked the pages by folding them over. And this is one of the first books I had. But that story always stuck in my mind. And it made me realize how important it is to have somebody there during those last hours or moments. So that's all I've got for today. Thanks for spending the time with me and listening. Make sure you say some sort of prayer, right? I know that all those times I drove to Lakeland on Wednesdays, got off work early to go to church school, was not in vain. That there was something that you learned, and it's embedded deep in your spirit and in your soul, and it will come back to you if you just crack that door a little bit, and it'll fling open, and all of that will come back to you. And remember that you're a member of the special club. Father Peter Quinn, he baptized Jennifer, said that when you become a Catholic, you're like a member of a special club, like the yacht club down at the Lake Hollingsworth. You're an official member, and all of the gifts that they offer are available to you because you're part of that I love you guys. Thanks for watching. This has been on my mind for probably the last 2 weeks, and every time I go to sit down to make a video, I would get sidetracked. It was either too late in the day, or like today I have the garbage to go out. I've got all the cans to do, and I thought, no, I'm going to sit down and make sure I get this video out, because I've got to do it. I've got to get it off my mind, unload my soul to you, and let you know that words of wisdom from God's chosen. God bless you. I love you. And I'll see you before too long on another one. Bye, you guys. May God allow us to be reasonably happy in this life, supremely happy forever in the next.